Success is not an accident, and failure is not a mystery. There is a reason why 98% succeed and 2% fail. It's not about luck. It's not about talent. It's about a pattern, a mindset, and a way of living. The difference is small, but the impact is massive. It's in the extra mile, the second wind, the decision to get up one more time when you feel like staying down. Some people stop when it gets hard. Others keep going. Some people quit when they don't see immediate results. Others push through the silence, the struggle, and the uncertainty. You don't rise to the level of your potential. You fall to the level of your discipline. Potential is what you could do. Discipline is what you actually do. And the difference between the ones who make it and the ones who don't, it's not talent. It's not opportunity. It's the commitment to show up and do the work, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's uncomfortable. Some people wait for the perfect time. Others create the perfect time by taking action. Some people wish, others work. Some people hope, others hustle. The 2% who fail, it's not because they weren't capable. It's because they weren't willing. Willing to endure, willing to grow, willing to change. Success is not for the chosen few, it's for the committed few. The ones who refuse to settle. The ones who refuse to be defined by setbacks. The ones who refuse to let fear have the final say. So the question isn't, do you have what it takes? The real question is, are you willing to do what it takes? Because the gap between where you are and where you want to be is not as big as you think. It's just a decision, a choice, a commitment. Talent is a great starter, but discipline is the finisher. Talent is the spark, but discipline is the fire that keeps burning when the excitement wears off, when the motivation fades, when nobody is watching. You've seen it before. People who had all the talent in the world, all the potential, all the natural ability, but they never followed through. They started strong, but somewhere along the way they got comfortable. Somewhere along the way they thought talent was enough, and now they're stuck. Not because they weren't good enough, but because they didn't stay consistent. Because talent will open the door, but discipline will keep you in the room. Talent will get you recognized, but discipline will make you respected. Talent can make a moment, but discipline creates a legacy. And the reason most people don't see the success they're capable of isn't because they don't have the gift, it's because they never trained their gift. They never built the habits, they never developed the consistency, they never stayed committed when it wasn't exciting anymore. They didn't show up on the days they didn't feel like it. They didn't push through when it got hard. They let their feelings determine their effort instead of letting their effort transform their feelings. Discipline isn't about how you feel, it's about what you decide. It's about choosing to do the work, not just when you're inspired, not just when it's convenient, but when it's hard, when it's boring, when nobody's cheering you on. Because success isn't built in the big, flashy moments. It's built in the unseen, uncelebrated, unexciting moments of repetition, practice, and sacrifice. Some people think discipline is restrictive, but the truth is, discipline is freedom. The freedom to rise above distractions. The freedom to break through limitations. The freedom to step into everything you were created to be. Because if you don't have discipline, you'll always be a prisoner to your emotions, to your circumstances, to whatever is easiest in the moment. But when you have discipline, you don't have to wait for permission to succeed. You don't have to hope for the right opportunity. You create the opportunity. You take control of your life. You take control of your future. The extra mile is never crowded because most people never get there. Most people stop at good enough. Most people settle when they're tired, when they're frustrated, when they've done what's expected of them. But the ones who succeed, they don't stop at good enough. They don't settle where it's comfortable. They push a little further. They give a little more because good enough is the enemy of greatness. Good enough gets you in the room, but it won't keep you there. Good enough pays the bills, but it won't build a legacy. Good enough gets applause, but it won't change the world. And the reason the extra mile is never crowded is because most people are satisfied with doing just enough to get by. But the ones who rise above, the ones who break through, the ones who stand out, they're the ones who decide that just enough is never enough. They're the ones who make one more call after everyone else has clocked out. They're the ones who practice a little longer when everyone else is packing up. They're the ones who refuse to quit at 99% because they know that 100% might be the difference between ordinary and extraordinary. And here's the truth. The extra mile isn't about talent. It isn't about opportunity. It isn't about luck. It's about the willingness to do what most people won't. It's about showing up when nobody's clapping. It's about putting in the work when no one is watching. It's about doing what doesn't feel necessary in the moment, but will make all the difference in the long run. Because success isn't found in the first mile. Anybody can start something. Anybody can be excited at the beginning. But champions, they keep going when the excitement fades. They keep going when the results don't show up right away. They keep going when nobody else is willing to push past their limits. Most people will stop at average. But if you want to be different, if you want to rise above, if you want to go beyond what most people experience, you have to be willing to go beyond what most people are willing to do. Perfection is a lie that keeps you paralyzed. It whispers, not yet. It tells you you're not ready. It convinces you that if you just wait a little longer, if you just prepare a little more, if you just fix one more thing, then you'll finally be ready to take the leap. But the truth is, perfection isn't preparation. It's procrastination dressed up to look responsible. Because waiting for the perfect moment is just another way of saying you're scared. Scared of failing, scared of what people will think, scared of putting yourself out there and realizing you're not as good as you hoped. And instead of moving forward, you hesitate, you delay, you convince yourself that you're being wise when really you're just being afraid. But success doesn't wait for perfect conditions. Breakthroughs don't happen in comfort zones. And if you're waiting for everything to be just right before you take action, you'll be waiting your whole life. Because there will always be a reason to wait. There will always be something that needs to be fixed, something that could be better, something that makes you feel not quite ready. The difference between people who succeed and people who don't isn't that one group is more prepared than the other. It's that one group took action while the other group kept waiting. Because done is always better than perfect. Progress is always better than potential. And taking one messy, unpolished, uncertain step forward will get you further than spending years standing still waiting for the stars to align. Some people will never start the business because they're still tweaking the logo. Some people will never write the book because they're still trying to come up with the perfect first line. Some people will never step into their calling because they're still waiting for a sign. But at some point you have to realize the sign is the fact that you're still thinking about it. The sign is the fire inside you that won't go away. The sign is the fact that you know you were made for more. So you don't wait for confidence to take action. You take action until confidence shows up. You don't wait for perfect conditions to move forward. You move forward and trust that the conditions will catch up. Because the people who make a difference in this world, they're not the ones who had a flawless plan. They're the ones who refuse to sit on the sidelines waiting for perfect when good enough to start was already in their hands. Comfort feels good. It's familiar. It's safe. It's the place where nothing stretches you, nothing challenges you, and nothing pushes you beyond what you already know. And that's exactly why it's dangerous. Because comfort is a trap. It lulls you into believing that staying the same is better than stepping into the unknown. It convinces you that settling is safer than stretching, that avoiding struggle is wiser than embracing it. But the truth is, comfort is the enemy of growth. Because growth only happens when you are uncomfortable. Growth happens in the stretch, in the strain, in the moments when you don't think you can keep going, but you do anyway. Growth happens when you step into something that makes you nervous, when you push past what's easy and step into what's necessary. You weren't created to live in a bubble of convenience. You weren't designed to stay in the same place, repeating the same routine year after year with nothing changing. Deep down, you know that. That's why even though comfort feels good, it never truly satisfies. That's why you can have everything you thought would make you happy and still feel unfulfilled, because comfort might feel nice for a moment, but it will never produce purpose. If it's easy, you're probably not growing. If it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you, because growth is found in resistance. Strength is built under pressure. Diamonds are formed under heat. And if you never step outside of what's comfortable, you will never step into what's possible. Some people spend their entire lives running from discomfort, avoiding struggle, dodging anything that requires effort. And in doing so, they never become who they were meant to be. Because growth isn't automatic, it's intentional. It requires you to embrace difficulty, to lean into the stretch, to choose challenge over convenience. It's easy to stay where you are. It's easy to do what you've always done. It's easy to settle for what's familiar instead of stepping into what's unfamiliar. But easy doesn't transform you. Easy doesn't prepare you. Easy doesn't unlock your potential. So if everything in your life feels effortless, if nothing is stretching you, if you haven't felt challenged in a long time, then maybe, just maybe, you've been playing it too safe. Maybe it's time to step into something that scares you. Maybe it's time to take the risk, make the move, embrace the discomfort. Because everything you've been praying for, everything you've been hoping for, everything you were created for, it's not found in the comfort zone. It's found on the other side of the challenge you've been avoiding. Failure isn't final. It feels final. It feels like the end. It feels like proof that you weren't good enough, proof that you should have never tried in the first place, proof that you don't have what it takes. But feelings lie, because failure is not a period, it's a comma. It's not the end of the story, it's just a plot twist. The only real failure is quitting. The only way you actually lose is if you decide to stop. Because as long as you keep going, as long as you keep trying, as long as you refuse to let failure define you, then it can only do one thing: refine you. Everything else is just learning. Every setback is a lesson. Every mistake is a teacher. Every no is redirection. The most successful people in the world aren't the ones who never failed. They're the ones who refuse to let failure stop them. They fell, but they got back up. They lost, but they tried again. They heard no 100 times, but they showed up for the 101st. Because failure isn't a sign to quit. It's a sign to adjust, to shift, to grow, to ask, what can I learn from this? How can I be better because of this? Some people experience failure and they shrink back. They let it confirm their fears. They let it convince them that they should have never stepped out in faith. But others, they experience failure and they lean in. They look at what went wrong. They look at what needs to change. They take the lesson, but they leave the shame. They take the wisdom, but they leave the fear. And that's the difference. Not talent, not luck, not opportunity, just the decision to keep going when most people give up. Because if you could see where your breakthrough is, if you could see how close you are to everything you've been working for, you wouldn't quit now. If you could see what's on the other side of the struggle, if you could see the doors that are about to open, if you could see how God is using even your failures to set you up for something greater, you wouldn't walk away. So don't mistake a chapter for the whole story. Don't mistake a moment of loss for a lifetime of defeat. You didn't fail, you learned. You didn't lose, you grew. You didn't reach the end, you just hit a turning point, and turning points aren't where the story stops. They're where the story gets interesting. The battle is won or lost in your mind before it ever plays out in your life. Before your body takes a single step, before your hands put in the work, before anything changes in your circumstances, your mind has already decided what's possible, because your body will always follow the direction of your thoughts. If your mind is filled with doubt, your actions will be hesitant. If your mind is full of fear, your steps will be small. If your mind is convinced that you can't, then you won't. Not because you weren't capable, but because you never gave yourself the chance to try. But if you believe you can, you're already halfway there. If you believe you have what it takes, you'll push when it gets hard. If you believe there's something on the other side of the struggle, you'll keep moving forward when most people would quit. Because the ones who win, the ones who break through, the ones who step into something greater, they aren't necessarily the strongest, the smartest, or the most talented. They're the ones who refuse to let doubt have the final say. Your mind is either your greatest weapon or your biggest weakness. It will either push you forward or hold you back. It will either tell you keep going or turn around. And here's the truth. Most people lose the battle before they even start because they've already talked themselves out of victory. That's why before anything changes in your situation, it has to change in your mindset. Before you lift the weight, before you take the risk, before you step into the unknown, you have to decide that you can. Because once your mind is set, once your belief is locked in, once you've chosen to see the possibility instead of the problem, then it's only a matter of time before your actions follow. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to see every step. You just have to believe enough to take the first one. Because the moment you shift your mindset, the moment you decide that failure isn't an option, the moment you refuse to be held back by fear, everything else starts to shift too. So before you say, I can't, ask yourself, is that the truth? Or is that just the story I've been telling myself? Because the life you want, the purpose you were made for, the breakthrough you've been praying for, it won't start with your hands, your feet, or your circumstances. It will start with what you decide to believe. Your future isn't waiting for you in some distant place. It's not something you stumble into by accident. It's already being formed right now by the small, ordinary choices you make every single day. Because success isn't built in one big moment. It's not the result of a single breakthrough, a single opportunity, or a single decision. It's built in the thousands of unseen, uncelebrated daily habits that nobody claps for. The way you spend your mornings, the way you handle frustration, the way you show up when nobody's watching. Your future is hidden in your daily routine. It's tucked away in your habits, in the way you talk to yourself, in the way you spend your time. The things you repeatedly do are shaping you whether you realize it or not, because what you do occasionally won't change your life. What you do consistently will determine what you become permanently. You don't wake up one day with discipline. You build it in the small moments when you choose to push forward instead of procrastinate. You don't suddenly become confident. You develop it through daily actions that reinforce who you are. You don't just happen to be successful. You create success through consistent effort when no one is watching. If you want to know where you're headed, don't look at your dreams. Look at your daily habits. Because your goals might be big, your prayers might be bold, your vision might be clear, but if your daily actions don't align with where you say you want to go, you'll never get there. Some people want to grow, but they don't want to change the routines. They want the results, but not the responsibility. They want the reward, but not the repetition. But transformation doesn't come from what you hope for, it comes from what you do. That's why discipline matters. That's why consistency matters. That's why the small, everyday choices matter. Because your future isn't built in a day, it's built daily. So if your future is hidden in your daily routine, the question isn't what do you want? The question is what are you doing? Because you don't rise to the level of your dreams, you fall to the level of your habits. You don't become great by accident. You don't wake up one day and find yourself living in purpose, walking in confidence, stepping into success. You build it every day in the small moments, in the unseen choices. in the discipline to keep going when nobody is clapping, when nothing seems to be changing, when it would be easier to settle. So don't wait for the perfect time. Don't wait for a sign. Don't wait for someone else to give you permission. The future you want isn't ahead of you. It's inside of you, locked inside the decisions you make today. The question isn't, can you do it? The question is, will you? Because your dreams don't work unless you do. Your potential doesn't activate unless you move. Your destiny doesn't unlock unless you're willing to step beyond where you are now and do what most people won't. Because that's what separates the 98% from the 2%.